Okay, I think we are 3 minutes past the scheduled time. We will get started. Hello, everyone. I am Arjun S. Meda, a senior developer evangelist with Automation Anywhere. And I have a host of our experts joining in this session. We have Max, he's a senior manager and also our product expert. We have Jeffrey, who's our senior director of product management. And we also have our all popular Micah, VP of community and learning. Let me just share my screen quickly. Before I do that, I know the topic for this session is about Automation Copilot Universe. I want to know how many of you have heard of our Automation Copilots before. Give me a second and I'm going to launch our poll. Can you let us know if you have heard of these product lines or if you have used these product lines? We are curious to know what percentage of audience are familiar with our products, especially the Automation Copilot. We'll give it a couple of more seconds and then we'll share the results. Okay, awesome. Last 10 seconds in case if somebody wants to answer before we kind of share these results with you. Okay, awesome. So let me just end the poll and share the results with everybody. I hope you are able to see the results. Micah and Jeffrey, it's visible, right?
Yep, I can see from my side.
You have quite a
Okay.
mix.
So we have a lot of folks who have not used this platform, but I mean, especially just the feature called Automation Copilot, but we have a lot of folks who have heard about this. So it'll be interesting. So thanks a lot for this poll.
We probably should have included the product previously known as Ari. That may have triggered some people to know what this is.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Let me just share my screen. I'll start with the agenda and then I'll pass it on to Max. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about the Automation Copilot universe. Here we are, as you all know, Copilot, to just start with the word Copilot, it is like a assistant. But what we're going to focus here in this session is mainly about Automation Copilot that is built by Automation Anywhere. You may have heard about ARI, the Automation Anywhere robotic interface before. So that is rebranded as Automation Copilot. Along with that, we have a lot more features being introduced in this suite. So we will talk about Automation Copilot for Automators. So that is like, as developers, how can we use Automation Copilot to increase our productivity? How can we use our natural language prompting skills to build automations? And also Automation Copilot for business users. How can we make the experience of using the platform easy and also seamless so that it's kind of integrated into their platforms? They don't even have to step out of their platforms to use Automation Copilot. And after that, I'm going to show you what are the new courses which we have released on Automation Anywhere University. We also have a Meetup coming up in the next month. I'm going to talk about that, and we will also have a Q&A in the meanwhile. So without waiting for more time, I would like to invite Max to take the session. He has some interesting demos to show you. From now onwards, it's all yours, Max.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Arjun. So I'm going to leave my webcam off for this just to save off some bandwidth to make sure everything goes through. And I hope everyone can now see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. So as Arjun said, we are going to be taking a look at our Automation Copilot universe, and we're going to be taking a look at Automation Copilot for both business users and for automators, as you can see here at the top of our architecture diagram. Now, when we start looking at Copilot for business users, there's multiple benefits that this brings to the team. By enabling this within your organization, we're assisting users with their every day-to-day tasks. This means that users are able to execute automations on demand without having that technical background or knowledge in order to be able to develop them. They also don't need to navigate a very complex environment in order to be able to actually set up and use the automations that are already available to them. Now, you can really manage the way that this is set up by creating and collaborating with your team. We are able to set teams to be able to distinguish what team or person within the organization has access to what automation or what process in order to be able to execute it. So you can really make sure that the only people that have access to this are the people that are going to need to execute this to perform their daily tasks. And of course, one thing that we're going to show you today is you can execute your automation directly from the applications you already use. So if you find yourself working within Salesforce a lot, let's say for an example, and there's a lot of automations that you have that aid with your Salesforce processes, well, we can embed our automation now into Salesforce so you don't even need to leave the application in order to execute. If we take a look at it, though, from an automator perspective, we now have the function in order to be able to actually use natural language to create your automation, and it's all done through a prompt. Now, with this, I'm going to give you a demo of this later on. We also have the ability to do suggest next action. So depending on the actions that you've already got built within your workflow, you are now able to press a button to use generative AI that's linked in with automation to be able to distinguish what set of actions would suitably follow from here. Now, you can accelerate automation development if you are a seasoned developer, but you can also actually accelerate training if you are, let's say, a citizen developer. By utilizing being able to use natural language and prompts to be able to create your automation, if you are unsure on where to go next, you're able to simply write down in plain text what you're trying to achieve. If your prompt is correct, Automation Anywhere will be able to turn this into the code and place it directly in your workflow. And of course, the cherry on the top, all of these features are integrated within the Automation Anywhere control room. So you don't need to go to different applications in order to utilize this set of tools. And we're going to go through both of these and all aspects that I've just covered there in today's session. Now, there are a few prerequisites to be able to set this up, and I just want to go over this briefly with you. Now, I won't be covering the prerequisites of what needs to be done in this video. However, after the video, we will be sending out a summary that is going to include all of the documentation needed in order to set this up. Now, the first step is to make sure that we have a custom role available that is going to allow the admin or the developer to create our API key. And this API key is what is going to link us to our applications. We need to create a team within our Copilot panel and assign the users to our team. Now, like I said, these teams will dictate what user has access to what process and what they can execute, just to make sure that you've got full governance of what is going on. You will also need to create an application and widget, but don't worry, that is not as hard as it sounds. It simply takes a few clicks and Automation Anywhere spins it up. All you need to do is add in a name. And finally, within Automation Anywhere, we will link our automation account to Pixie Bricks. And again, this is fully documented. Now, even though we have 4 steps there, in order to achieve all of these, you're only looking at around a 20-minute processing time, and that's setting this up leisurely. So it really doesn't take much work or effort to get this set up. But like I said, take a look at that summary document, have a look at our Automation Anywhere documentation around setting this up, and definitely give it a go for yourself. But without further ado, let's get hands-on. Okay, so jumping now then into my control room. So currently I am in my RE panel. And here we can see I have two processes that are currently available to me. Now these processes here, I want to actually execute these within Salesforce. So in order to do this, I've created my applications and I've created my widgets. And just to quickly show you within the RE panel, this is where you do the majority of the configuration besides the user accounts. On Manage, we have Teams, where we can see the team that I'm using. Woo, go Team Max. And then we obviously have our applications as well. And within here, if I select my application, we have the widget. And this widget here is what will allow me to embed my Copilot directly into my application using this link. Now, even though this may look complex, like I said, take a look at the documentation because all it consists for you is adding in these names. So once you've gone through and you've configured your user account to be able to utilize the Pixie Bricks functionality, and you want to start embedding into your applications. So here I have my Salesforce application. From here, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is just opening up my developer console. Now, once you have Pixie Bricks added, you will see at the bottom we have this Pixie Bricks function just here. Now, this is a very, very streamlined way in order to be able to embed our panel into our applications. So once we have our Pixie Bricks available, all I'm going to do to begin with is I'm going to press this add button just here, and I'm going to create a sidebar. Now, in this sidebar, this is what's going to connect through to Automation Anywhere. But I need to add in my iframe. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this render document here, and I'm going to add my own brick. Within here, if I search for iframe, I'm able to embed an iframe, which will be my Automation Anywhere iframe, into my side panel. Now, if we go now and just quickly grab that widget again, I'm going to press my embed code, and I'm just going to copy my developer link here. Return back, and I'm going to paste this straight in. Once that has been done, I'm going to press my render panel, and my automation will appear just here. So if I come out of this and just quickly log back in, once I've logged back in, we can see how it will then refresh, and already I have my two panels here. So straight off the back, just from this initial setup, I can now go and execute any of these straight from my side panel. Now, it doesn't actually stop there. We can start now adding even more customization to this. So another element that we can add is we can start to add a trigger. So this means whenever a user goes on to our Salesforce panel that has this set up, it will automatically open up. By pressing add and then selecting trigger, we have multiple trigger events. I'm just going to leave this as page load / navigation. And that means then this is going to open up when I load up my page. From there, I'm just going to press the add a brick again. And again, I'm just going to enter my sidebar to show sidebar and press add brick. Now, the sidebar that this is then going to show is going to be the side panel that we have set up here. So now this is going to force my side panel to open up when I have my Pixie Bricks in place. And finally, another element that is very cool. If I press this add, you notice that we have the option here for button. If I select on button, what I can now do is if I hover over a button that already exists and I click, you will see here that it adds an additional button. For my button text, by entering automation anywhere, and then I'm going to press my add a brick and select my show sidebar. What this is now going to allow me to do is press my automation anywhere button to open up my side panel where then my processes will be showing. From here, I can execute my process straight away with no problem just by pressing that play button. And again, all of the details and the data is already provided within that widget. So from a business user point of view, being able to execute your automations just by pressing a play button that is visible within the panel, it streamlines everything for you and makes the user a very user-friendly process. Perfect. And as we can see, that play button that I was referring to in my side panel just here without the developer at the bottom, and all I need to do is press start. So for the SF demo, we can see here data to add. If I add my data in, I'd be able to press submit, and this would execute my automation. Now, I'm not going to execute my automation because this one isn't linked to this page. But if you had an automation that was, you would simply be able to configure it here with the data to add and then perform the actions. From a business perspective, like I said, it couldn't be more streamlined. Now, if we move over now and we start taking a quick glimpse at what we can do as a developer. So I'm now back in my Automation Anywhere control room. And from here, I'm going to navigate through to my workbench. So I'm going to open up a demo bot that I created earlier, but this is just a blank automation. Now, once in my workbench, at the top here, we have this amazing feature called Copilot. Now, like I said, this Copilot feature has multiple benefits. For a seasoned developer, this can greatly speed up all aspects of your development, as you can simply type out multiple actions that you're wanting to perform, and then Automation Anywhere will be able to put that in place for you. So let me quickly show you. So if I need to, let's say, open my browser and open up an Excel dataset. For my prompt, I can put I need to open my browser and open an Excel dataset. And now send. Now, what this is actually doing now is this is taking my prompt that I've asked it for. And in the back end, GenAI is actually comparing my prompt to the actions contained within Automation Anywhere. And it's going to use my prompt in order to be able to distinguish the actions that I'm wanting to capture and what it is I'm wanting to do. So as we can see here, I've determined what I need to do. Open my browser and open up an Excel dataset. And just from that, I now have my browser open and my Excel Advanced open. You will also notice it has also added the variables in there as well. If I select on my variables, we can see here how we have our two variables that are easily identified that they have been selected from that prompt. We know that because it begins with P. We have the best practice techniques followed by having the str, so we know it's a string variable. And then here we have the file path and the URL. So now as a developer, all I would do is open up my variables and populate my value to where either I want to navigate to or the file that I want to open. Now, if we then want to have a look at a different option, which is the suggest next action. Now, this suggest next action will analyze the actions that you've already got in play and work out a suitable set of next steps. So if I select these three dots here next to Excel Advanced Open, you see the option here for suggest next actions. So if I click on this, we can see here that this is what it suggested: a loop, a recorder, and an if statement, which actually is a perfect set. If I'm opening my browser and I'm opening a data set, the majority of the time I'm going to want to go through my data, which would be done within a loop, and utilize that in some way, which more than likely would be done using the recorded capture to interact with your web page. From here, I could just press add, and then that will be able to then insert these lines of data directly into my workbench to speed up development. Now, remember, this isn't just a case of being able to use it to speed up development. From a learning standpoint, if you're new to automation anywhere and you're really wanting to grow your knowledge, it's great to play around with. Invoke some actions and start building your automations, but then utilize the Copilot functionality to maybe try and get it that little bit more complex. You don't need to know the logic, but it's good if it's presented to you. Likewise for this, if you're thinking, where could the automation go? Use the suggest next steps in order to be able to continuously keep giving you different suggestions that work with your workflow. And luckily for us, all of these elements here will still continue to follow best practice techniques. Now, remember, the setup for this will all be included within the documentation that's provided in the summary for this developer meetup. But this goes over the initial elements on how we can really start invoking our Copilot for automators and our Copilot for business users. And if you haven't seen it already, take a look at the other applications that we've got, because it's not just Salesforce that this can be embedded to. You can embed this into Teams, you can have this embedded into Excel. There really are a fair few possibilities to make life easier for you and your day-to-day tasks. That goes over our Copilot for business users and our Copilot for automators element. I hope you can see how easily we can start adopting these features within our control room and across our organization. I'll be happy to take any questions, but from here, I'll pass it back to Arjun.
Okay, thanks a lot, Max, for that. And yeah, we do have a couple of questions coming in.
Amazing. I'll stop my share. Let's take a look at these questions.
Sure. I know some of these questions were also answered in the portal, in the Q&A window, but probably just in the interest of others as well who are interested to know, like Ganesh had a question like this option, like where you created these mods, can we use this in every portal wherever we wish to code?
So if we're referring there to the widgets, as to say, as long as you've got that correct link and it supports the iframe functionality, you're going to be able to have this embedded within your applications that you use. I don't want to say every single application because I haven't even used every single application out there. But the applications that I do use on a day-to-day basis, I haven't had any problems with embedding these features into that.
Okay.
Just to add on to that as well, the lucky thing is when it comes to embedding, you'll find that the majority of the time, the actual process only changes within the application. What I mean by that is the process is the exact same, regardless if you're integrating it with Teams or whether you're integrating it with Salesforce from an automation perspective. It only changes from the application that you're wanting to embed that. So the settings will be different in Teams and Salesforce, but the same within automation.
Okay. Okay, sure. And there's one more question. To use these features, they would need to have Pixie Bricks installed in their computer?
So Pixie Bricks wouldn't. So Pixie Bricks does have a lightweight Google Chrome add-on that you are able to use, but you do not need to actually have this available there. It simply works as just an API connection that will be able to connect your control room with your account over through to the Pixie Bricks account. Now, once you've gone through and you've done them prerequisites to be able to actually then obtain your API key, it is very simple. And I'll quickly show you that now. So if I quickly share my screen, once you've created your custom role, going over what we were saying previously with the user roles and the rights, you will then have this feature available. So if I press my logo and I press my settings, from here, I now have a button that says generate API key. All I need to do is press generate API key. And if I press yes, what that will then do is give me my API key that I would then link in with my applications. I'm not going to press yes there because I don't want to remove the link that I've already got in place for my other applications. But it's as easy as that.
Okay, great. Also, you showed that there were a couple of automations which were showing on the mod on the right side. Is it possible to execute like bots on particular devices based on process or button or the user on these interactive forms?
It is indeed. And this goes down to that teams element. So when you start creating your teams, you can also start creating your device pools. Now, this means that you can really start to manage whereabouts your automations are going to be executed. If you want to execute your automations locally on the machine that's going to be executing it, that can all be set up within the team just by selecting the correct radio button. If you're wanting to actually launch your executions to a device pool, you just select the other radio button and ensure your device pools are set up. You have full configuration on where you want to execute your automations to from pressing the play button within your panels.
Okay. There's one question, like, can Copilot work with recorder option? So I think Jeffrey answered that, saying like our target is that by release.34, we'll have that. Jeff, would you want to add anything to this?
Yes, very quickly. So effectively, we maybe some of you already tested Copilot for Automators with an earlier version, and Recorder was obviously it's one super common and interesting use case, but it wasn't something we touched on at the first version. But we're working on it. We have a MVP that should go out with the .33 release. So if some of you are part of the beta program or early testing, you should be able to have your hands on that aspect earlier. But our target is effectively release .34, which is by the end of the year. So yeah, we all have this support for recorder-based element. Also adding that we are so introducing Gen AI-based recorder. That might be the topic of another webinar, but super interesting feature to add also to that recorder use case.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that. And does one need to be an administrator of the system to which you want to embed?
So for the admin side of things, that's purely going to be needed in order to be able to create your user accounts and your customized roles and assign that then to the specific accounts. Once the admin account has created these roles, there's nothing stopping the admin account from giving these roles to the necessary team members in order to be able to perform all these functions themselves. But you've got full control on who's going to have access in order to be able to do this.
I would add a little bit of color there to say that Max didn't need to be a Salesforce admin to build the extension that he showed, right? Because what's happening is through that Copilot extension, that's being layered on top of the application layer itself. So Max didn't need to be an admin of Salesforce to be able to build that, but you would need to make sure that the Copilot extension was deployed to any user who you wanted to push this mod out to.
Yeah, that's just to also add some nuance. That's the beauty of the automation Copilot. It's wherever, whenever your users are. If you have an admin, for example, your Salesforce admin, you're friendly with the guy, and you know you can get things done. There's also a way to embed iframe directly into Salesforce to get more of a native feeling. But we know some applications are allowing that customization, some are not, and sometimes your IT on the application side are not responsive or just busy with other project, and that's where the Chrome extension comes in. So however your application is set up and however your organization is set up, you have access to Automation Copilot.
Okay. And Deepak had a question if Pixie Bricks can be made available. I mean, can it be used on like on-prem now?
Yeah. So if we're talking about Automation Copilot for automators, it's a cloud-only feature. If we're talking about Automation Copilot for business users, it's available for on-prem and cloud, and it's working and compatible with all kind of cloud rooms.
Okay. How complex tasks can we automate using Copilot? Does it support Citrix environment?
Yeah, so I answered this one. The way that I would say to think about this is that we want to think of Copilot as being that initiator for kicking off automations, the validator for in case we have exceptions or things like that, where we're coming back from an automation back to a user, and then also validating the results of an automation that may have executed, right? Making sure that the data we have is correct and things like that. So for complexity, the complexity of your automation is really the same, whether you're using Copilot or it's just like a scheduled automation. That part doesn't change. It's when I want to get a human involved, and that's all designed using that process composer. To the part about Citrix, I answered this in the chat. I'm pretty sure you can deploy Chrome extensions in Citrix. I'm not a Citrix expert, but I'm pretty confident you're able to do that.
Yeah, we have customers in production on Citrix, Citrix Desktop, Citrix XenApp, lots of them. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. There's one more question. Is Copilot available in community version?
Okay, I can take that.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So Automation Copilot, again, business users. Yes, you have a flavor of it on Community Edition. You can build processes, you can build bots that are attended, and you can show Automation Copilot on your on either embedded or your desktop. There's some flavor of it to just see how it does. Obviously, on the Community Edition, you're the only user, so you're both the creator and the consumer. So it will have a slightly different behavior from if you were in a production enterprise control room where products, the people building and the people consuming are very different. Here, Max tried to give you two personas and showing those two personas. But in Community Edition, everything will be merged together. For Automation Copilot for automators, as of now, it's not available in Community Edition. It's only available for enterprise control rooms.
Okay, great. There's one question like, which other applications can we use like this Copilot with? Like we have showed like Salesforce, any other applications we can use it with?
Straight from the top, we've got Microsoft Teams in place for it. That can definitely be embedded straight into there. We have Excel, as well as other areas around there. So the applications, like I was saying, as long as you support the embedded of the iframe, you'll be able to embed our application in there.
I would also say that, I mean, think of any web application that you're working with where you have the ability to layer on top of that. So I've got one that I use for LinkedIn. Surprise, surprise, right? I'm using Copilot there to help respond to comments and questions. So there's plenty of opportunity to use this. I've had this in Twitter before. I created a Twitter Copilot. Any application that you have that is web-based, you'll be able to, for the most part, create some kind of experience there. It may not be exactly like Max showed with cloning a button, but it might look like I'm going to use keystrokes, or I'm even going to customize the CSS that I'll create like this weird button that doesn't even match the layout of the format. You have the ability to do that. So there's lots of options there. And with that sliding out side panel, it works really well for being able to kind of hide it when you don't need to see it.
Okay, just looking at if there are any other questions, because some questions did come up in the chat as well. Like Salesforce changes layout frequently. Like any help we can get in terms of this tool in self-healing that?
Well, we do have a new feature that is on the horizon. Are we giving a glimpse into this new feature yet at all, or talking about it, or we're waiting for the release of this and keeping everyone on the toes?
Sorry, I didn't. Which one were we talking about, Arjun?
Like when if Salesforce changes layout frequently, how can this tool help in self-heal? Is there some options available?
I really don't. I wouldn't think of it like a self-healing kind of situation, right? It's going to try to embed that, like he showed, a button. If it's able to embed that button, great. If the styling changes of Salesforce, you may need to make some adjustments there. But there's always options to have other triggers than what Max showed, right? You can have a trigger based on certain keystrokes. You can have triggers based on page load at certain subpages. So I don't have to have it every single time I load into Salesforce. I could only show it on certain subpages for cases or for contacts or things like that. So I have a lot of customizable capabilities there. And like I said, I would go and explore those different triggers. It doesn't have to be a button. If the button makes you nervous because of the Salesforce layout, that's fine. I can tell you that Salesforce Lightning layout hasn't changed for like 4 years, but you do have the ability to do this in different ways.
Just on that note as well, the question that you was answering there, the problem around it is it doesn't focus down onto the kind of the generative AI and the Copilot features. That ventures more down to, let's say, your resiliency recorder. But it's hard to be able to say and put down to a self-healing automation because it all depends on the actual changes. If we're talking about very minor input box changes, or very minor changes to the layout, but the actual code and the naming conventions behind it are the same, then there are methods and ways to identify this. But if we're talking a whole complete update and redesign, then we're always going to have to find the issues and the ways in order to recapture these elements.
Okay, this one. Just looking at if there are any other questions which has come up in the. Okay, don't think I have any other questions. Yeah, some of you have asked for recordings. Yes, we will share the recording with all of you. That will be available on our community portal, and we will also send out an email with the link to the recording and also some of the questions answers we have had here.
I
And
want
there's
to I want to
one.
address this question from Delesh real quick. In the demo, the Salesforce used system was available with Max, but how can a non-technical user use this in their system? Will a developer needed to set up? So the way that I would think about this is what Max just did was really like the developer experience of using this, right? He kind of showed how it worked, he built it, and then he was testing a bit with it. When you think about deploying this kind of capability more broadly, the way that this would work is we would want to make sure that all of our users had that Copilot extension, which is something that I can do through group policy. I can push that out. And then I would deploy those different mods. So what Max created, what is called a mod, he's able to create a deployment of that. He can assign that to other users and a group of users, an entire team, whatever. And then he has control over who sees that. So the end user doesn't have to be a developer. They don't have to really know anything about this. They can log into their application one day and all of a sudden there's a third button that they'd never seen before. That's the way that this would work in a real production environment where I'm able to push that out. People are consuming it. They don't have to know a whole lot about like where it came from. They don't have to set anything up. They're just able to then consume that capability. I think
Okay.
that's a good point to mention because what we showed was like the developer focus side, but this can be deployed much more broadly.
Yeah. And do we require any specific license for using Copilot for developers?
License wise, I'm pretty sure it's just the standard Copilot edition. Within these admin settings, it will still be referred to as ARI within there. But to be able to use Copilot features, you would need just the ARI licenses in place.
Okay.
Someone had a question, Himanshu, about shadow root elements. This is a very unique and very tricky scenario. It's something that our recorder team is looking into right now. I can't promise when that's coming out exactly, but they're exploring that as a way to be able to do that capture in shadow root elements. Part of it comes down to the way that that shadow root element exposes itself. With shadow root elements, you do have the ability to basically hide code as opposed to expose it. And if it's hidden, there's really very limited to no ways to be able to access it through traditional methods of like a DOM-X path or anything like that. If it's not hidden, then there is a way to get to it, and we're still exploring the best way to make that available for people. That's the first time I've ever had anyone actually ask that question, though, because it's a very rare scenario that those kind of objects show up.
Just a nuance I want to add on the licensing. So automation, there's two automation copilots. So effectively for business users and for automators. For business users, it's part of your automation copilot and bot creator licenses. So if you have a bot creator license, you can develop and build. If you have a automation copilot, you can consume from the Chrome extension and be embedded the desktop. For automation copilot for automators, it will be part of a larger package we're calling Automator AI, which has different features like autopilot, resilient recorder, Gen AI recorder, smart testing, and this Copilot for automators. And that will be part of another license, which will be global to the courtroom. Let you talk to any of your representative or account team, which to discuss that further.
Okay. How are we giving access to create global values to the seasonal developers, considering global values can be created only by admins?
For this, you'd be able to create a custom role. Within the custom role itself, you should be able to distinguish the rights in order to be able to have specific users with that role to set up and configure the global values. But you can also create the global values and have it as user submitted. So if the admin was to create the values and send that over to the user is still able to pass that value. So they don't have to share the credentials with one another and have someone else set it up.
Okay. I think that's pretty much all the questions we had about the Copilot. Jeff, do you want to share anything about like what's coming next in terms of the Copilot?
Yes. So automation copilot for automator, like we discussed, recorder based use cases. It's what's coming, where we are focused on. There are two aspects to automation copilot for automators. There's enhancing the accuracy of the model of the AI and ensuring that what is the AI is building is useful for you as a developer. So that's one angle we're working on, and recorder based being an example of a use case we want to enable, have more accuracy here. Then we have another angle, which is just improving your experience. So being able to have more meaningful conversation with the assistant, for example, undo, redo, being more specific about the line items you want to improve, being able to also express your satisfaction, being able to accept or not recommendations. So improving that user experience by itself is another pillar. And the third pillar is ensuring this is an enterprise grade feature that you can trust, ensuring that it can scale with your usage, ensuring that it can be aligned with your policy. For example, security policy, do you want to enable that for all your developers or just a subset of them? Do they have access to all packages or just a subset? So continuing on that governance, build, and trust aspect. So those are the three pillars that we're working on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. There's one interesting question. I don't know if I have the right one for this. Like, is there a JavaScript SDK coming up?
Yeah, so it's something I'm typing. We'll send the link to our documentation. So basically, What Max shown is one way to embed automation Copilot for business user into an application. So having the Chrome extension and, for example, grabbing fields and grabbing data and updating the data in the page. There's another way to do it. It's just if you embed an iframe, we have a JavaScript SDK that allows you to map, for example, fields from Salesforce and send them to the form and map all those data. I would just send the documentation. We have example for ServiceNow, Salesforce. We have some codes on GitHub to help you. So we'll send you to that doc and we'll see. Anonymous attendee, whoever you are.
Sure. So what we'll do is like when we share the recordings, we'll also include these reference links so that everybody can take a look at it. Okay. And for the mod use like this, Pixie Bricks security aspects covered by AA as part of the overall InfoSec contract. I assume this is third party.
Most of customers don't see it as a third party. They extend their InfoSec contract or security assessment to also Pixie Bricks. If you have a cloud confirm and you're a cloud customer, it's easier because that's some of the configuration of Pixie Bricks is sitting on the cloud, and we also have cheat sheet and security diagrams and to explain all that. For on-prem customers, sometimes it can be seen as a different InfoSec because some of the configuration is sitting on the cloud, is not 100% on-prem. But what I've seen is most customers and most InfoSec team consider it the same and not a third party.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all. Those are all the questions we have. So what I'd like to do is like I'd like to share about the next event that is coming up. Like the next month, April 25th, we have a meetup very similar to this coming up on API tasks. So I'll share the link in the chat here so that feel free to register on this one. Let me just share my screen so that I can kind of show you in case if you would want to go to our community portal and get these events. So you can just log on to community.automationanywhere.com and then you can click on this events page. This will give you access to all the upcoming events here. You can see like the current one is listed at top here. We have a couple of user groups specific to some regions. And here is the link for the API tasks meetup. So I'll also share this link with everybody. Feel free to sign up here. And we also have a lot of new trainings coming up. Like recently, we launched the Delta training for the Automation 360.31 release. So this talks about all the top 5 features released as part of this release, and we also deep dive into each of these features as well, so you'll get a hands-on experience on how to use these features. And once you also complete this trail and answer the assessment questions, you will also be awarded with this badge, which is shown on the right side here. And if you have any questions, always feel free to come to this community portal. And then based on the questions you have, you can always look at the collaborate section. And depending on what kind of questions you have, you can come to the developer forum and ask the questions as well.
If you get that badge, make sure that you tag us on social media. We want to repost you, celebrate you. This is a great way to keep up with the newest and best capabilities of Automation Anywhere. And as a developer, as an automation leader, as a COE lead, this is the best way for you to make sure that your organization or the customer that you're serving is always able to take full advantage of the newest and best that we're releasing. Every release has a lot of really cool stuff, and we're trying to uncover that in a better way to make sure the developers can get hands-on with this stuff. So please make sure that you go through that, get that badge. It's a great way for you to stay up to date with your training, up to date with your understanding of the full capabilities of our platform.
Awesome. Thank you, Micah. And thanks a lot, Max, for sharing the knowledge about how do we use this Copilot. I am pretty sure this is very useful for a lot of our developers. As we saw the poll initially, a couple of them knew about it, but very few of them had tried it out. So this is a great opportunity for all the developers to try out this new feature and see what kind of new cool automations they can build with this capability. And with that, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us. Hope this was useful. I hope to see you all again in the next month's meetup. And thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.